All right, hey everyone. Today we are talking about crawling. So, crawling is a weight transferring from your hands and feet, and depending on which direction you're going to go, you're going to transfer the weight one direction or another. But crawling is using the same principles as running, where you're really trying to keep the center of mass moving over a contact point on the surface. And the better you move over these contact points, the faster the crawl is going to be. Generally, we use crawling to help develop the student's ability to push through their arms to prepare them for rolling or inversion, handstands, cartwheels. And so that's usually what the crawling is for, but there's more to it than that. So let's get into it. So crawling concepts, you have center of mass positioning, and that's really just understanding where is the balancing coming from, where's the weight actually, is it on the feet, is it on the hands, how is it moving and feeling. Before you even get to crawling and moving, you could just be holding the position, rocking back and forth so they can feel their center of mass actually move. The weight transferring aspect is just understanding where is the center of mass and how am I transferring it from one side of the body to the other. And that's going to be shown later in the three different types of movements. Directional crawling is either vertical or horizontal. So vertical crawling, it's a way to think of it, it would be like vaulting essentially. Tuck on, straddle on, pike on. It's kind of more of a vertical crawl, even though you're getting a jump in it. Same kind of concept of how the weight transfers. Horizontal would be maybe crawling across the floor or the beams. Based on the distance that the hands and feet are placed, or basically the distance that the center of mass has to move, is going to determine if it's easy, medium, or difficult. So doing some form of tuck crawling, your distance of moving the center of mass is not very far in the weight transferring process, so that it's going to be a lot easier versus if you're doing inchworms or stoop crawls where you walk your hands all the way out to a super plank position and then walk your feet all the way back in. It's going to be more difficult because the center of mass is traveling more distance. So there's three types of movements to understand, and crawling is a good way to build the coordination of these three types of movements. So you got bilateral, and what that means is you're using both your legs or both your arms moving together. So this is really more what you'd see with a donkey kick kind of action, which has more of a flight phase in it. But the idea of you're bringing both feet in together at the same time, or then maybe moving both hands out at the same time. Generally, we do not move the hands simultaneously. We walk the hands, but just so you understand, bilateral is both at the same time, being both legs or both arms. Contralateral, or crosslateral is opposites. So you're using the left arm and the right leg, and they are moving together. This is probably how maybe like a chameleon moves on a tree branch, or you'll see in a lot of animals how they run. So it's opposite sides moving together. And this type of crawling has actually been proven to help kids read because the eye has to track the hand movement, and that eye tracking the hand movement actually helps children learn how to read. So crosslateral, this is a movement of opposite arm and leg essentially. Then you have ipsilateral, and this is the same side moving together. So it's the right side or the left side, and it's moving simultaneously. We don't usually do a lot of ipsilateral crawls, but these are good variations to put in. So essentially you just have to change the shape. So we'll go here, like for instance, this is a tuck position, but you could do it in a pike or you could do it in a straddle, right? This you could easily do in a pike or straddle as well. You just straighten the leg, and then it just kind of has this wobble kind of walk to it. But it's good to get the opposites working. Or this you could do in a straddle or a pike as well, and then you just again have this wobble kind of going, but they're now learning how to move the same sides. This one is very similar to actually the running movements where it's opposite arm and leg. So this is actually going to cross over and help the students later with their running coordination. So it's actually probably a really good, important movement to have. This movement is actually more along the lines of what twisting comes into play with. Flipping and twisting is using one half of your body to move together. This movement here is actually more what rotational movement, front flips, back flips, because you're using either your legs or your arms to generate some form of force, angular momentum. So this is kind of your rotational movements. This is your running movements, and then this is actually more what twisting turns into be. So tuck crawl, so we're just in a tuck position, and it's just understanding you want to keep your hips really below your shoulders in a tuck crawl, and you're trying to get the compression as small as possible. The closer the feet are to the hands, the more difficult it's going to be. So just understanding how far do you want to bring the feet in. Straddle crawling, okay, feet go on either side of the hands as you're doing your straddle crawls. And then you have pike, which is also known as stoop or inchworm. Stoop position is a bar term. And so it's the closer you get your feet to your hands, the more difficult it is, but the better. The further your hands go away from your feet, also the more distance you're traveling. This is a good strength. Gets you more inverted. If you look at the shapes, this person is less inverted. Their hips are below their shoulders. Now their hips are going above their shoulders, but this one even is getting a little bit more inverted because the feet come together, so it raises the body and the center of mass a little higher. This is your crab crawl. Okay, so the goal on this is to get the hips lifted as high as possible and opening up the chest and shoulders and head so that they're actually getting the posterior chain activated. So you're looking for the hip sag. You don't want the hips to be sagging. And then the finger placement is important to make sure that the hands are turned around. This actually helps the wrists and the pain that's going to be happening from being on the wrist that way. Bridge crawl, look at the evenness of the bridge. You're not trying to point load, so while you're doing bridge crawls, you're not trying to overbend in one area or the other. Generally, bridge crawling and crab crawling are going to be contralateral movements where you're going to be moving opposite legs and arms. You're not going to be doing bilateral where you're moving the same arms to get both arms together, both legs. You probably could do ipsilateral where you're moving the same arm and same leg, but you don't usually see that. It's usually opposites, and this is opposites usually as well. Although you will sometimes see kids jump both feet in together and then walk the hands out and then jump both feet in and then walk the hands out. So you can kind of put similarities. You should probably always walk the hands in a bridge crawl, never hop the hands out. That's going to put a lot of force on the body in a way that you don't need. So that's basically crawling, weight transferring from your hands to your feet. And you can do this in your warm-ups. You can do this on floor. You can put it on beam. But other than that, it's pretty basic and straightforward. These shapes and movements will build and actually help students build confidence in their ability to move their center of mass and put max effort in their higher level tumbling skills. So it's really important to actually get good at crawling. It's a good way to test if somebody's ready to move on to the inversions or the rolling. And so there you have it. Crawling, weight transferring on hands and feet.